Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Puji Pujono again from Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia being held in Bali in conjunction with the global platform on for disaster risk reduction on the 7th session. We are privileged now to have the opportunity to have a conversation with colleagues from the private sector, right? We have with me Mbak Sinta and Pak Faisal, my dear friends. Shortly, I will ask them to introduce themselves of who they are, what they do, and what organization they represent. And then we will have a discussion with them on why all of this become important event and milestone for the private sector, disaster risk reduction, and for Indonesia. Mbak Sinta, welcome, and Pak Faisal
Thank
to
you, Pak
the
Puji.
Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia.
Thank you.
I would like to invite you, Mbak Sinta, and after that, Pak Faisal, to introduce yourself, your name, what you do, what organization you are working with.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. I'm Sinta Kaniawati. I'm the country director of Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management in Indonesia. We as an APAT organization is actually a 7-country network in this Asia Pacific. Apart from Indonesia, we have Japan, Philippines, Korea, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. And we have actually been born here in Indonesia. So coincide with the IMCDRR in Jogja back then.
ASEAN Ministerial Conference on Disaster Reduction. That
Correct.
was in 2012.
12.
Right.
That's correct.
So this is 10 years actually, right?
It is.
Right.
So it is actually a very good momentum and privilege to be in this GPDRR 2022 because we are celebrating our 10th
Excellent.
anniversary.
We're looking
Correct.
forward to the party of the APAT. Pak Faisal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Faisal Jalal. I'm one of, together with Mr. Dr. Puji Pujono, we found the Indonesian Society for Disaster Management, which we call it Indonesia MPBI atau MPBI. And then together with Ibu Sinta, we also established the Regional Asia Network, which we call Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management. And now for Indonesia, we set up the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management Indonesia. So
Okay.
I'm here as a program coordinator for the APAT.
So that's
Indonesia.
Mbak Sinta and Pak Faisal from APAT. Now, I would like to try to learn more about this APAT thing, right? What was the motivation? What drive APAT into what it is now? What was the justification, if you like? Right, Mbak Sinta.
Okay,
Share
so
with us. Yeah.
thank you. So before 2012, what we've seen actually as an Asia Pacific countries, we are all facing the same risk, the same threat on disaster. However, not many of the cooperation has been formed. I'm not talking about G2G, but I'm talking about the non-state actors. And this is actually the area where APAT would like to be a hub in really connecting with all the relevant non-state actors in these countries so that we can forge works and effort to really help saving more lives in less time.
Okay. Why Asia Pacific though?
It's actually started in this Asia Pacific.
Yeah, but
though
why? I mean,
I think
right?
right. So I think Asia Pacific. I think we have all common issues. We have basically
you're facing a similar
exactly. So I think as a region,
risk.
we do have already a very good, I would say, infrastructure in terms of organization and network in Asia Pacific, which we can align and collaborate with. So we have NMCDRR, we have basically the network of other collaboration within Asia Pacific that we can leverage. So we're not starting from zero, basically.
Sure. Okay. And Pak Faisal, could you just share with us very quickly, in 2012, how did it happen? Right? Suddenly it's just coming out from the ground, become APAT. What did happen?
No.
Or what did you do actually?
So I think it starts again with MPBI.
Okay.
So there's a Japan delegation at that time who would like to build a network in terms of like Ibu Sinta, I mean how we can help each other in the Asia Pacific regions to help others in times of need without all this red tape, administrative bureaucracy. So you should put a kind of focal point in this country. And it shows us also that this can be also happen in Indonesia, because Indonesia is one of the important country, like our delegation from Japan. I mean, the idea was from Kensuke at that time at Masa, who worked at the civil force Japan platform and this Japan peace wind. So through the experience, how we can cover it into other countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and so on.
Okay, Mbak Sinta, a quick question. I understand that at the global level, there is already a platform for a private sector engagement on disaster reduction. They have special event in Sendai and Hyoko before and platforms. How does APAT relates to this platform at the global level?
I think one of the key word, in my opinion, it's really trying to connect with whatever networks. I'm coming from the private sectors. I've been with private sector for almost 29 years.
Just on that, tell us, what have you done before in the private sector?
So
I could claim to be private sector, but a private citizen. It's very different. But what have you done?
So, well, I'm joined Unilever Indonesia for almost 29 years. And part of the reason why I joined back then the national platform for DRR in Indonesia, it's because they would like to have more engagement with private sectors. And back then, private sector was not so engaged. It's different now. I think more development progress, and I see much more presence of private sector, which I'm happy. And this is probably one of the mission that as APAT, we would like to encourage more involvement of private sectors. And one organization or one platform will never be enough. Because we have, more than
when you talk
thousands
about involvement, Sinta, private sector involvement. What is this involvement encompasses, in terms of activities?
All right. Okay.
You get involved in what? In which aspect?
Right. So I think private sector was always thinking at least about themselves, to ensure that all the business continuity is in place.
Definitely, they're driven by profit. That's
I think it's more on not necessarily profit. I would say it's more like to ensure the business continuity of their own operation.
And what's the end result of the continuous operation?
I think they would continue serve the community and the society that they are operating with.
Because you certain about this?
Oh yes, of course.
I'm really provoking this question because, private sector really, in my view, are driven by profit. Now the extent of that profit, then it goes to other things, the good thing, CSR and those things. I mean, if private sector
how could that
exactly,
right.
in a harmonious way, right?
All right.
The question now is, how do you reconcile that profit-driven motivation and disaster risk reduction? Where is it the interface? More of that, actually.
All right. So it's kind of interesting. I think I personally received similar question over the years. I'm not trying to defend the private sectors because I'm no longer in private sectors.
There you go. Now you're free to say anything.
Okay. No, the thing is, private sector, just like other non-state actors, we are part of the ecosystem wherever we are. So, like any other organization, we have to also survive. Along the years. So one thing that we also see that as a private sector, to be able to continue with our operation, we should also take care of our environment. So this part is including on how we should be part of any disaster management efforts.
So let me get it. At this point now you're talking, your involvement is to make sure that there is business continuity in terms of operation despite disaster event risk and events.
Of course.
Now, Faisal, I'm sure you pushed this agenda even before 2012. What has been the response from the private sector in Indonesia and in the region? Has that response moved from one direction to the other? Has there been any increase? I know the increase of actors' involvement, but in terms of the attitude, has there been increase on or enhancement of that?
Yes, increase, yes, very much. But to my, it's still very slowly.
Okay, okay.
Because the cultures of private sector in Indonesia is really many kind of class. It's depending also on how big Indonesia is.
Okay.
But one thing we are succeed in this convince them that they know already now that the value chains is depending also on the customer, on the supply chains, on that. And even if they are like here in Bali, everything is nothing happened, Bali hotel is there, but when there's no tourists is coming,
as is the case of pandemic now.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So this is our point always, that's why we are concerning also with the.
Are you saying, Faisal, that the pandemic has opened up the doors for the private sector to have more insights why they need to get involved on disaster reduction in the very broader term?
Yes,
right. Now,
very much.
Yeah.
Just to see if there is disaster like earthquake, and sometimes they are not involved directly, so they have this feeling just to help, to donate.
I was about to get there right now. Mbak Sinta, statistics shows that in the event of disasters, around 80% of losses and damages are shouldered by private sectors, not public sectors.
Yeah.
So what you said earlier, that business sector has the interest to ensure that their operation will continue and sustain. That's one thing. But Faisal now saying that they also a factor that help the resilience of their society. Could you just elaborate a bit on the second point, how the private sector become a pillar of the society towards resilience?
So as I mentioned earlier on, it's the private sector is part of the ecosystem.
Right.
So they have a lot of, I would say, resource, expertise, and technology support behind it. And within their operation, there is a back end, I would say, value chain where they have basically thousands or even hundreds of suppliers who are supporting their operation. So when
who also collapse together with them
exactly.
when they face adversity.
So I think you are right when you're saying that the COVID, it's really opening up their eyes even more.
Right.
That they cannot live alone. They cannot neglect those within the value chain.
Right.
I think it's really a realization to see that way forward they have to take them into account if they want to sustain and still exist in the business.
Right. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, from this conversation I learned two things. One, that the engagement, involvement of the private sector in disaster reduction, one, is to make sure that their business operation sustain and survive despite threats and risks and events and occurrences. Number two, how the business sector could contribute to the resilience of their society on the basis of the value chain, expertise, stock, capital, whatever that they have, asset and capital in their disposal. Now, I would like to segue a bit. Right now, this is the end of May, and in September, there will be the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference for Disaster Reduction in Brisbane. What kind of agenda you will push from Bali to Brisbane? Could I start with Faisal, please?
Yes, as you are aware, disaster, whatever it is a local business.
Sure.
Second, if we talk about industry, especially tourism industry, people think about big hotels and everything. I think 70% at least the pillar or the support for the tourism industry is from the small, medium, and micro enterprise, like this handworks, supply chain for the hotel and other things. So it is very important that we also engage the voice of this small and medium enterprise in terms of like transportation, not only airplane but domestic transportation.
Let me just pick up very quickly. You mentioned two keywords there.
Yes.
What I get from you, you want to push the agenda on tourism,
Yes.
And then SMSE,
Yeah.
small and medium enterprises, right?
Yes.
So these are two things that
Yeah.
you will push there. Now let me go back to Mbak Sinta. In addition to these two, what else would you push as an agenda to Brisbane? What are real things that we could observe from now until September?
Okay, I think we mentioned about the current number of private sectors involved.
Okay.
Probably it's still far from ideal.
Okay.
So one of the agenda that we want to push as an organization is that we want to involve more.
Okay. At this point now, how many private sectors, if there is any number at all, in APAT's network, say in Indonesia and in the region, what's the number now?
I think
Just ballpark figure.
Yeah, ballpark figures probably around 30 to 50. Still,
Percents?
no. It's
Units,
it's
items,
still
individuals.
Yeah, I think it is still too small.
Oh, it is minuscule.
Oh yes.
I
No,
mean,
the
look,
thing.
Look at Asia Pacific as a region, and you have 50 in your list.
So that's one thing is about number.
Okay.
Is that we as APAT organization, single organization, will not be able to do it ourselves.
Definitely, yeah.
So what we do, which actually happened already on May 24th,
Okay.
is that we are collaborating with Indonesian Global Compact Network, which
Okay.
is a UN Global Compact network, also exists in this
Yes.
region,
Yeah.
that we want to collaborate and repeating what we have done in Indonesia throughout Asia Pacific.
Okay. So,
So that is at least one concrete action that
Excellent.
we'll do. Yes.
And what about the Hotel and Restaurant Association?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the business
you're talking
related
about tourism,
to tourism.
from Bali to Brisbane tourism sector, small medium enterprises, and then the broadening
Collaboration.
and expansion of the partnership and collaboration with other partners,
Yes.
with other private sectors.
Correct.
And we hope to see from 50 to become 5,000 by September. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
So
No, the
colleagues,
thing is the Global Compact Network globally, they are one of the largest, I would say, CSR platform, which is basically private sector involved.
I understand.
So
And-
I
and
think
that's partly the
it's
reason-
really leveraging what
Sure,
it's already
sure.
exists. And I
That's-
think
yeah.
one thing, Pak Puji, if
Yeah,
I may ask,
sure.
is that I think the collaboration that we do here in Indonesia, it is actually very central also with the government program.
Sure.
So the local government has a very big stake in making it successful.
Okay.
And the last one is actually the community part.
All right. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 things I pick up from here, from Bali to Brisbane. 1, the revival, the support, the second life, if you like, to new normal of the tourism sector and hospitality. Number 2, strengthening, supporting the small, medium enterprises. Number 3, the expansion of the network and partnership of APAT, leveraging the Global Compact. And the 4th one is engagement and cooperation partnership with local authorities, local actors.
Yes.
If this 4 agenda will be consolidated, be presented from Bali to Brisbane by the private sector, we are home free. On that note, I would like to thank Mbak Sinta and Pak Faisal for sparing
Thank
their
you.
time with us.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you, and I hope to see you just before Brisbane, or if even in Brisbane then.
We do hope so. Yes.
Certainly. So, colleagues, that's my conversation with Mbak Sinta and Pak Faisal. This is Puji Pujiono from Rumah Residensi. Greetings from Bali. I'll see you in the next interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.